Plan your day and stay safe. From KCRG TV9, this is First Alert Weather Now.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday evening edition of First Alert Weather Now. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson.
I'm meteorologist AJ Rickman.
And we're halfway through a fairly typical sort of early mid-January weather week, and we've got more of that to come, but there are some things to focus on, including some temperature changes, some precipitation chances too.
Absolutely. Nothing huge or, that we're going to be really worried about for widespread travel hazards, but some small things that you're going to want to keep an eye out for in the coming days. For
sure. And looking ahead on your forecast for fun, we'll be looking toward the weekend and things coming up, as well as a look at, well, I don't know what you have in store for the climate close-up, so I'm as eager to find out as the rest of you.
Well, it will be very colorful and very bright. So
okay,
I like looking at bright colors. I thought it was very visually satisfying. I hope you all think the same.
Can't wait.
Absolutely. But before we get to that, we do have what you need to know as we go through the short term. Looking over the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to be dealing with what you would expect in January. It's going to be quiet but chilly. Partly cloudy and cold tonight. Wind chills do drop close to or below zero. And we are watching for a chance for some flurries and snow showers as we get into tomorrow night and then into your early Friday morning. There is another chance for some snow as a clipper system passes through our area as we get to the end of the weekend, but these are very light and scattered snow chances that we're going to be watching for over the next couple of days. No major winter storms that we're dealing with at this point and no heavy snow accumulations. Now right now we are keeping things quiet across much of eastern Iowa. In fact, most of the afternoon was mostly sunny across most of the area, which was a pleasant experience if you were outside, got to enjoy some of that sunshine hitting your face. And a look outside does show that the sun has gone down, and as we look outside over Independence, temperatures are going down as well. 12 degrees in Cedar Rapids, and it does feel like 12 degrees there. Wind chills aren't too much lower than your air temperatures across most places, but as we go through the night, we are going to see those wind chills drop close to or below zero as our actual air temperatures drop into the upper single digits close to 10, with some areas of passing clouds through the night. And like Corey mentioned, it's fairly quiet, but we do have those slight snow chances that we will be watching for as we go through the next 2 to 3 to 4 days.
Yeah, luckily nothing that's going to stop you in your tracks, though, it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing too major.
A little more detail coming up in a little bit, but first let's look at a few things that involve some of the events going on around eastern Iowa. Meteorologist Joe Winters has your forecast for fun.
It's that forecast for fun time, and we've had some fun times bundling up as we've went outdoors. You're going to still have to do that, although there's a slow warming trend, as you can see in our walking forecast. 28 on Thursday, southwest winds at 10 to 20. Looking for some sunshine early, clouds late, let's call it partly sunny. Early Friday could be a couple of flurries. Watch your walking path. There could be a little snow left on the ground for some snow showers on Thursday night into Friday. And then Saturday looks quiet with 29 degrees. Clouds again, I think, building as we head through the day. Overall winds shifting directions just a bit. On Friday at the Imon Ice Arena in Cedar Rapids, Sioux City's in town. Puck drops at 7:05 for the Rough Riders, 29 degrees. I think by game time, any of that snow is out of here. That would be an early morning. The Iowa men's basketball team, they're back at Carver. That comes up on Saturday. Indiana at Iowa, tip off at 7 o'clock. It's a blackout game, 29 degrees. Now on the way home, as you're heading home after the game, there may be a few snow showers around that you want to watch to see if that could bring a slippery spot or stretch. The Iowa women's basketball team, they're in town again on Sunday. There will be some scattered snow showers around. Watch for some slick travel. It's a gold-out game. Indiana at Iowa. Tip-off is at 2 o'clock. And once again, taking a look at our ski report, lots of skiing can be had across eastern Iowa, just not any fresh snow. Many runs open all the way across Iowa, Wisconsin, as well as Minnesota. That's a complete look at our forecast for fun.
Well, tens of thousands of people are under evacuation orders on the West Coast as the Palisades wildfire continues to burn through thousands of acres of land. 4 fires are burning near the borders of Los Angeles. That includes the Palisades, Hearst, Woodley, and Eaton wildfires.
And the destruction is immense. You can see the big flames, and they are moving quickly when those wind gusts get very strong. Unfortunately, it does appear that they have claimed at least 5 lives so far in these fires. Maribel Gonzalez is in California with the latest.
Oh my God, you guys.
Los Angeles County is now in the crosshairs of 4 massive separate fires. Thousands of acres ravaged and counting. Tens of thousands of people ordered to evacuate.
Take it seriously and evacuate. Your life will depend on it.
Some civilian fatalities have been reported, and fire officials say there's little to no containment this hour. High winds, massive walls of fast-moving flames, and rough, hilly terrain are stretching fire crews to their limits.
We have several firefighters and civilian injuries that have been reported.
Many evacuees had to abandon their vehicles and escape on foot, while some residents tried to save their homes with garden hoses.
You think you're going to be out there with your little garden hose, stopping a conflagration with flames 80 feet high and 90-mile-an-hour winds. You're not going to be helping.
Actor James Woods is one of many who lost a home in the Palisades fire.
It just finally moved into about 3 months ago. All the smoke alarms are going off, so that's hard.
President Joe Biden visiting LA County Wednesday, getting briefed on statewide reinforcements being called in.
I contacted the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. We requested 250 additional engines into LA County with 1,000 personnel.
In the Pacific Palisades, I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
And one of the things that are fueling these wildfires is what is known as Santa Ana winds. It's a very hot, very dry, and very powerful wind that occurs when you start with high pressure off to the north, and in this case, northeast of the Sierra Nevada mountains that run along the border of California. Los Angeles is down here, and these winds come rushing across the land out towards the Los Angeles area. The way that these winds are formed is when you get that high pressure that again is off to the east or off to the northeast in this case of the Sierra Nevadas. As that air rushes away from that center of high pressure, it goes down the mountains and then that air is compressed. As that air is compressed, it heats up, and that air isn't very moist to start with, but then as that air travels across deserts, that air dries out even more. So you're left with very warm, very dry air. And then finally, that air, as it moves towards Southern California, it's pushed and squeezed through all of these tight canyons and valleys. And when you squeeze that air down, it speeds up and moves faster through them. So the end result is a very hot, very dry, and very powerful wind that then pushes out into areas of Southern California and creates very favorable conditions for these fires to, unfortunately, grow and thrive, as we have seen happen in this area.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
In eastern Iowa, things are quiet. We do have mostly clear skies up above us tonight, but we are keeping our temperatures from falling too rapidly this evening thanks to what are eventually some shifting winds. Right now, they are on the lighter side, so those feels like temperatures, those wind chills, right in line with our air temperatures in many locations. Cedar Rapids, 12 degrees, 17 in Iowa City. Dubuque, a little bit of a light breeze, making it feel more like 9. Next 24 hours, though, stays pretty quiet. We'll keep precipitation out of the forecast and wind generally out of the forecast as well. It's later tomorrow night that we may start to see a few snow showers move in. Satellite and radar view, though, illustrates the clear skies that we are seeing. Just a few very thin clouds off to our north. Your first alert forecast overnight, though, calls for temperatures around 9 in Tama, 11 in Prairie du Chien. These are a few degrees warmer than where we were last night at the same time. Not a big change, but it's the wind from the south between about 5 to 15. That's going to limit how far we can fall. Now, Pinpoint Futurecast shows those red arrows on your screen, not pumping in extremely warm air, but they are bringing in slightly warmer temperatures for your Thursday. Pinpoint Futurecast very aggressive in terms of developing a lot of cloud cover overnight. I think we're going to keep it partly cloudy as we go through that time frame into the day on Thursday too. Now, later on Thursday, toward the afternoon, evening hours, some clouds start to move in from the northwest. There will be a weak boundary that starts to approach the area. We would call it a cold front, but the temperatures behind it really aren't that different than those in front of it. It's just kind of a wind shift here. And along it, we're seeing some of those areas of flurries or scattered snow showers develop and sag to the southeast. But notice how few that there are. It's 10 o'clock, not much to see here on Pinpoint Futurecast, but overnight, a few more may develop along that. Notice well off to our southeast, a decent amount of snow could fall in far southeast Illinois into Indiana with a storm system that will cause pretty widespread wintry impacts from Texas all the way up through the Ohio Valley. Now, here in eastern Iowa, we're far from it, and we're going to keep things dry and cloudy for most of your Friday. Your first alert forecast for your Thursday involves temperatures in the 20s and 30s, with 28 in Decorah, 31 in Washington. Oskaloosa may sneak above that freezing mark for the first time in a little while as we get near or above normal in terms of our temperatures for a few days. Now, it does come at the expense of some winds. They will be out of the south between about 15 to 20 miles per hour at times during the morning and afternoon. They get lighter after sunset tomorrow, but that southerly wind, unfortunately, will tend to counteract that bump in temperatures. temperatures. So it'll probably still feel like the teens as you go through the afternoon. Now this weekend we do have another opportunity for a little bit of snow. Storm system drops in out of the northwest. AJ mentioned that second chance, and here it is. And it's a little bit more widespread than what we're expecting on Thursday night into Friday, but still limited moisture-wise here across the eastern portion of the state. Up to the north in Minnesota and Wisconsin, that snow chance is a little bit better. They may actually end up seeing a little bit more. Here it's that Sunday daytime period that we're keeping a close eye on for the possibility of some slick spots. Likely not something you'll have to cancel your weekend plans for, something to keep an eye on. And then if you are a cold weather fan, which there are some, you certainly have more to look forward to as we look toward the next week or so, January 15th through the 17th here on this climate outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Still favoring below normal temperatures, at least during that time frame.
Well, I have to say, I kind of am a fan of the cold weather at this time of year. Now, when it's April 15th and we're getting snow, that's a whole different story. But for right now, it's that time of year, it's wintertime, should be cold. I would like a little more snow, again, because it's that time of year. But we'll just have to hope for a little more, I will hope for some more precipitation. It's been very dry.
Down in northern Georgia, so I was looking at some of the information at the track of this system that's coming through on Friday. So Arkansas, several inches of snow. The Ohio Valley, same Minnesota, or Tennessee and Kentucky. Northern Georgia expecting a couple inches of snow in some places, including in Atlanta, which for there is a big deal.
That is a very big deal. The type of snow that we wouldn't bat an eyelash at will shut them down, and will shut them down for multiple days, even after temperatures get above freezing, which is a little bizarre now that I've had a couple winters up here. I understand why folks up here kind of laugh at that, but it is, doesn't happen often down there, so folks aren't used to it. They're not used to driving in it at all.
Not used to it, and they don't have the same tools. Like, think about how many snow plows there are in Chicago, for example. Atlanta just doesn't have that. They don't have the budget for it.
Exactly, yeah, and without that infrastructure to clear the roads, you combine that with drivers that aren't used to driving in the snow, you can create a lot of really messy situations, like one in 2014 where Snowmageddon, the whole city shut down and folks were just leaving their cars on the interstates.
Yeah, so. And that was a bad one. Hopefully they learned some lessons from that.
Absolutely, and I think they did. Hopefully they did, and I guess we'll get our answers to that, or answers to those questions answered as this system rolls through in the next couple of days.
One way or another.
Absolutely. But looking at things in terms of climate rather than weather, for this week's Climate Close-Up, how to look at a very colorful way to track temperature trends over several years. In fact, some folks have turned it into clothing items such as scarves, ties, but they're called warming stripes. So for a look at these colors and what they represent, let's have a look at what we have for this week's Climate Close-Up. Well, for this week's Climate Close-Up, we're going to have a look at a very colorful and very useful graphic that we can use to determine how temperatures have changed in a given place over a period of time. What exactly I'm talking about is known as a warming stripe. So here's an example of a warming stripe. This is for Cedar Rapids, and it goes from the year 1893 to 2023. So let's take a minute to kind of make sense of what we're looking at here. So what we have is a bunch of colored lines, obviously, but we're looking at each of these lines representing a year. And that year, again, starts in 1893 and goes all the way to 2023. The color of the line represents the temperature for that year, the average temperature over the entire year, compared to the average calculated from 1901 to 2000. So, for example, we had warmer than average years marked in red, colder than average years marked in blue. And when you put them all together, you can get a general idea on how temperatures have trended in Cedar Rapids as we've gone from 1893 all the way to 2023. You can see there have been some years that have been extremely warm compared to average, some years extremely cold compared to average, and they do tend to flip-flop, and we have a mixture of warm and cold years. Now this is useful because we can pick out certain trends in our temperatures as we've gone through history. We had colder periods in Cedar Rapids, we had warmer periods as well. And we can also see that other cities have warmed or cooled differently. For example, in Birmingham, Alabama, their warming stripe looks a little bit different than what we have in Cedar Rapids. So again, as we go and take a look at those comparisons, Birmingham had some warmer than average temperatures, a warm period as well, but then they did have a colder than average period before again warming up as we got closer to 2023. Another city that warmed differently than both of these was Albuquerque. We did see them have a more steady warming as we went from 1892, went cold, and then eventually turned to warmer than average conditions as we went into 2023. So these are useful for looking at different cities and how they've warmed. It's also useful for looking at things on a larger scale. For example, our U.S. warming as we've gone from 1895 to 2023. Looks like a pretty big mixture, but if you look closely, you can see some very vague trends. We do have a mixture of warm and colder than average years, more colder than average than warmer than average as we look back closer to 1895. As you get closer to 2023, we do start to see a little more red as warmer than average years mix their way in there. Now, if we take this idea or this graphic and we scale it out over an even larger area, perhaps a global average, that's when we really start to see some trends jump out at us. We start off at 1850, cooler than average, and then we do see a pretty steady warming trend as we get towards 2023, which does track as the top 10 warmest years have happened since the turn of the 21st century. So this is just an example of one way that we can look at warming, not just on a city scale, but also on a national and global scale. And that is a quick look at what we had for this week's Climate Close-Up.
A look at the 9-day forecast shows a little bit of variation in the next couple of days. First chance of snow again Thursday night into very early Friday. I think most of the active snow falling will be done by the time you wake up on Friday, but the possibility of a few slick spots is out there for your morning commute. Don't forget that. Temperatures will be ever so slightly warmer than what we've seen so far this week. Upper 20s to around 30 degrees as we head into the weekend. Sunday offers another opportunity. We showed you that just moments ago, but the chance for accumulation is still pretty limited, even though we will see a somewhat wider area of snow moving through. Now, we can't rule out a little bit across portions of the TV9 viewing area. Still a few days away, still getting those details down and nailed down as we get a little bit closer, but watch out for that. And again, the better chance for stuff that sticks is up here in Minnesota and Wisconsin on the northern side of that storm's track. Looking ahead to next week, a bit of a temperature drop early next week. In fact, that high of 21 on Monday likely taking place earlier in the day, and then we'll see a pretty good push of cold air Monday night into Tuesday. That does eventually move on. In fact, gets replaced by something pretty significantly warmer, at least in a relative sense. We'll see highs back into the low 30s and potentially above freezing in a more widespread fashion for the first time in a little while by the tail end of next work week. So if you're looking for something, if you prefer warmer weather, there is that, at least toward the end of the 9-day.
So I have to ask, are you looking more towards the end of the 9-day, or
Yes.
are you looking forward? No,
I'll cut you off, and I'll just say yes. I don't know. I don't like being cold that much. Well, so it is what it is. I live here by choice. I know what I'm getting into.
Oh, yeah.
But I prefer the warmer months, and so I don't mind getting out of it. It's just, this is a pretty long stretch of near or generally below normal temperatures that we haven't necessarily seen for a little while. So I'm a little out of practice.
That's fair. That's fair. And it'll make you appreciate those warmer days even more.
That's a good way to look at it.
Absolutely.
We'll take a closer look at it again tomorrow night on the Thursday edition of First Alert Weather Now. Thanks for joining us this evening. Have a great evening.